actually have my tickets with me. I'm seeing on the 17th. Yeah. You should take those if you want. If you don't have them yet. I'm seeing it at 10:30.
How much can I sell these for?
$20. You could probably sell them for like 50.
It's been rated. It's PG-13.
That is correct.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Since I was a kid watching the original trilogy, I always loved that George Lucas did practical sets but also miniature work. And now JJ is kind of bringing that back, shooting on 35mm film.
Mm-hmm.
You have John Williams' score, Dan Mindel shooting it. I was geeking out. Can you tell me the first time you walked onto the Millennium Falcon in the '77 film and the first time you walked onto it in this film and the difference, how it looked?
When we first went into the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon in 1977, I'd been asking to get in there for weeks, but the paint wasn't dry yet. It wasn't all put together. And when Chewbacca and I first went into the cockpit, he wasn't able to get into his seat because he's 7 feet, 4 inches tall,
yeah.
and wearing that costume. So the first thing is that they had to shift his seat around, and you'll never see him get into his seat.
Oh, wow.
In the original film, because he can't do it. And the second thing that happened that I remember is I asked George, well, okay, now how do you drive this thing? And he said, I don't know, just make stuff up, which is what we did, because nobody thought about how to actually drive it, run the thing, fly the thing. But when we came back, they had faithfully reconstructed the cockpit. It was exactly the same as I remember it.
Now, I've wanted to ask you this question since I was a kid, and to be here at a Star Wars Junket, this is one of the greatest honors. I'm like having nerd tears. I'm like geeking out so much. How did they do the Carbonite shots? How did they get that mold of you? Did you sit in makeup for hours? How did they pull that off?
They did make a mold, and it was just I think the technology at the time wasn't very advanced. I think it was plaster and gauze that they laid in layers over my face to create the I think it was the expression.
When I saw the trailer for the first time, before I go, the Chewie we're home line, to me, just it evoked such an emotion in me as a kid. But can you just take me to the moment where you said that in this film and how it felt to say that line and the art of just getting that line out?
We tried a bunch of different versions of that line. And the original scripted line is Chewie, we're home. But I wanted to try, we're home Chewie. We're home, Chewie. Chewie, we're home. We tried variety of versions of it, and the one that's there is the one that was scripted. We couldn't do any better than that.
I'm not going to ask you who shot first. I know you get the question all the time. I'm not going to go down that route. You get it a million times. But I do have a question about that, because obviously in the '77 version you do shoot first. We've seen that a million times, and Lucas did change it to Greedo. But his reasoning behind it, which I found fascinating, was he said that Han would be more like a John Wayne person and allow the person to shoot first, then shoot. Do you agree with that? I'm just wondering how you feel about the change.
I don't care. I think it's interesting that people are interested in that and discuss it amongst themselves. It doesn't make any difference to me. If George, if George cut it that way, then that's the way it should be.
This has been one of the greatest honors of my life. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, very kind.
And thank you for being so cool. There's this epic shot in this clip where you and John Boyega are running, and he's like, we can't outrun them, and then this massive explosion goes off, and you guys get stopped.
Yeah.
How did that look on set? Was that a real explosion in front of your face?
Yeah. I mean, our incredible stunt doubles were there when the actual explosion went on, but when we were running at it, there was a huge fire. So, because our DP is incredible, so the lighting was right and everything. Dan Mindel.
Yeah.
And it was hot, and obviously it was as if this thing was fully on fire, so it kind of was terrifying.
So I'm a big fan of the original trilogy, obviously, episode 4, 5, and 6. I love The New Hope, Empire, and Jedi. If you could see Reay dropped into one classic scene in the original trilogy, where do you think she'd have the most fun? I know time-wise it would never happen, but where would she have fun the most?
That's a good question. Probably the cantina. Are you
Yes.
happy with that?
Yes.
Well, as me playing Reay, because she's used to kind of being around all sorts of things, all sorts of creatures and stuff, but never on a kind of even keel. So to be in a bar, be surrounded by people who are kind of her peers, I think would be cool.
What would she do in the scene? Like, who do you think she would talk to? Like, what would she be doing
I think she
there?
would talk to anyone. She's super open to like saying hi to, like letting people in.
Yeah.
So I think she would just sit at the bar and see who came along.
Now, as we see scenes with you and BB-8, I have the little BB-8 at home. I've been
Yeah.
playing with him for months now. And I know he's being fully operated. Is he fully always moving with you? How does he look when you're with him?
He's like the whole time he's moving. The puppeteers, Dave and Brian, are insane. And so he's literally like, he's always kind of shifting. It's like he's breathing the whole time, his head's going. So Brian does the body and then Dave like kind of remote controls the head and they make the noises as well. So it's like he's inhaling and moving the whole time. It's really amazing.
Now, I love the story about when you first found out the news that you got the role. You were at a play, I think it was
Yeah.
Oedipus Rex,
Yeah.
and you were with the guy and you couldn't tell him.
Yeah.
What transpired after that? Because obviously, like, did you eventually tell this person? Like,
Weirdly, I saw him somewhere a few months ago and I felt really embarrassed. So I was like, so I pretended not to see him.
Are you
Isn't
kidding?
that awful? Yeah. I was really tired. And I don't know if he ever picked up that it was that. But also I had a friend in the cast. And so he commented on like my Instagram or something saying, oh my God, this is cool. But I don't know if they've put two and two together.
Yeah.
But I was just like, for the second
Oh my
half.
gosh.
And then I haven't really spoken to them.
And in the Comic-Con footage, we see you get into the pilot seat.
Yeah.
I believe it's the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
That shot looks amazing. Are you flying it? Can I ask you that?
I am flying it.
You are flying it?
I am!
Okay, I can't wait. How did the lightsabers look on set? Like, how do they illuminate on you? Like, what were you holding? How did they look when you did that?
I mean, let's just say that they illuminated so well that I would hold the blade to my eye just to get that shadow, and I'll do that a couple of times just because it was so cool, and it's really.
It actually lit up?
Yeah, they light up, and also as when you clash with another saber, it flashes white. I was going to push it and have JJ go for sound effects, but apparently that's too much. But yeah, it's actually there. It's heavy. It's real, and it's quite the experience to use one of those.
All right, so I want to see Finn somehow, I know this would never happen, but dropped into one classic scene from the original trilogy, New Hope, Empire, or Jedi. What scene would he have the most fun in? What would he do in that scene?
Oh, with the Ewoks. I mean, yes, Finn would just be with the Ewoks, just trying to help them out. That would be fun. That would be fun.
The first shot I saw you was in the first teaser. There's that amazing shot of the desert. You pop up in the frame.
You felt it?
Yeah, have you felt
Yep.
and the dark side and the light? I love
Yeah,
that scene.
yeah.
But your face comes up into the camera and you're panting, your helmet's off. What can you tell me about that moment? Like, where is that? Like, what's going on with you in that moment?
I could tell you that, it felt like doing 15 squats because I was crouched below the camera. And JJ had me pop up and said, genuine fear for the circumstance that has happened to Finn, and give them a slice of the emotion, but nothing about the story. And that for me, it was cool to film that, knowing that it would be in the teaser in that way. It was really cool. So what I did, I angled my face towards the camera a bit more than I usually would.
Oh, wow. It's a great shot. I love Dan Mendel so much. He's a freaking genius.
So good.
He really is. I saw your Shrek impression on TV the other day, but I heard you're working on a Yoda impression.
I'm working on it,
Can I hear a little bit of it?
It's up and coming. Do or do not. There is no try.
That was absolutely perfect.
Was it perfect?
It was great.
I'm refining it every day.
I love the story about when you first got the role.
Yes.
You told your dad, and your dad had no idea what Star Wars was.
No clue.
So what I want to know is, have you sat down with him and watched the first 6? And if so, what order did you show him in?
He had 6. He had the big Star Wars Blu-ray Deluxe, 6 movies back to back. Apparently, the guy started from the prequels and then went to the originals just because order is just how he likes things. And he called me after watching it, just like, oh, so Anakin, is he a Force ghost or is he gonna come back? Oh, and he was really getting into the story. And so it's fun to know that my dad is enthusiastic. My mum, however, just wants to see her son in it, so isn't going to go through
Yeah.
6 movies.
The
It's not
scene,
gonna happen.
the scene real quick where you and Daisy are running, and it's the clip they released on Kimmel's show.
Yes.
And you're like, we can't outrun them, and you guys are
Yeah.
running, and that massive explosion goes off. I was geeking out. How did that look on set? What's really happening? Is there a real explosion going on? How do they do that?
That looked like it was there because it was, and it was really hot. The heat was just at the back of your head, and that's why I got to step in. I made sure I was running as fast as I possibly could, and also keeping my position for the camera. But yeah, definitely was good to know that those effects are real. It helped the scene.
Well, I want to ask you about that because I'm a big fan of film, and I love that you shot 35 and some 65. And I talk about preserving that classic look and what film gave you that digital couldn't give you.
I know that there are all sorts of statistics about how the dynamic range of digital equals film, and we've all seen poorly lit film and wonderfully lit digital, and there are no hard, fast rules. I don't care about the numbers. There's magic in film.
Yes.
There's something about film that is just undeniable and the best and ultimate way to capture an image. And so for us, using film was critical. Using some of the old original lenses was sort of a fun thing we did here and there too, from the original Star Wars movies.
But you had the original lenses that they shot
Yeah,
on?
some of the original lenses we got from Panavision. But the amazing thing for me was when I watched the movie as a kid, seeing those droids on the deserts of Tatooine. I didn't know it was Tunisia. I didn't remember, but I knew it was real. It felt authentic, and it was really important to us that everywhere we possibly could, we did that. So we could have done a lot of things, but we went to Abu Dhabi, we went to Ireland and into the forest of Wales and shot plates in Iceland and built these enormous sets, interior and exterior, because we wanted the movie to never feel like it was shot in a vacuum of green screen or blue screen. We wanted to, and working with these puppeteers that, for example, brought BB-8 to life, it allowed actors to have actual performances interacting with, creatures and droids that were there. It's a long-winded answer, but it's to say it was so important to us that this movie look and feel much like the original movies did, so that we could tell a story going forward.
I loved you on Kimmel, and you gave
thanks.
Kimmel the first spoken word, which was this.
Yeah.
Can I have the second spoken word?
I can't little by little be doling out will.
Awesome. I
Yeah,
can't
see?
wait. All right, so I'm a big nerd about filmmaking. Thank you for that. That's awesome. I'm a big nerd
I'm
about-
not going to answer the third word.
I won't ask you that. I'm a big nerd about filmmaking. I always want to go on set and see a film get shot.
Yeah.
How did you do the actual lightsabers? What are they holding? What do they look like? How are they illuminating the bodies of the actors?
It's amazing, and if I had time, I would show you. But I might have to have. I'll try to find it as I talk. But these were props that were almost as bright and as real as the actual lightsabers themselves. And the reason that was so great was the interactive light that you see on the actors was so significant, and it was something that frankly I didn't even realize how important that was. And by the way, it doesn't make it a good scene, but it's a cool thing to see what it looks like when you actually have lightsabers and there's a fight going on, and you're actually seeing what it does to have something that bright, that red or that blue on someone, and it's a pretty significant thing. I will find something for you and show
I'm
you.
so excited
But,
to see this.
Just for you, though, not the camera. Hold on. I'll show it when we're done.
While you're looking,
Yes.
John Williams' score, directing him directing his score as a leading character. I love that. Talk about the different balance of balancing new themes and old themes.
Well, I didn't need to obviously direct John Williams at all. His gut, his talent, his wisdom, his storytelling is so significant. The most incredible thing was when he went to conduct the end titles, which always has all the themes, connected together. It was so profound to hear the end titles begin as it always does, and then sort of lead into some of these themes that we had been hearing for months that he's created. And it's just an amazing thing to hear his work and to hear how these new themes coexist inevitably in a way with the original ones.
All right, first of all, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right, I'm geeking out to see Captain Phasma on camera. I have to ask you, if you could see her dropped into any scene from the original trilogy, where would she have the most fun in either Empire, New Hope, or Jedi?
Oh, good Lord, what a question. That's a toughie. I've always been very fond of that scene where Han Solo is encased, but I would quite like to be in one of those.
Yes! Let's get this done. JJ and Ryan Johnson, let's get them all in here and direct this scene. You know, going back to the moment you talked about Han Solo in that, I love that line that he said when she says, "I love you," and he goes,
I know.
I love that scene so much. I know. I'm with you. And then he drops down. It's so cool. Obviously, I've seen the footage, what we've seen so far. I'm just wondering, do you remember the first day you walked on set? Can you tell me the first scene you shot without spoiling anything? Can you talk
I
about that?
can't tell you the first scene I shot, but what I can tell you is that I could not believe this was happening. I really couldn't. I really couldn't. I was as excited as I think you would be. I really had to sit on my hands in the car and really focus on keeping my mouth closed so I wouldn't just scream all the way there. And then when I got there, I mean, everyone was so effusive because everyone working on the film was as excited as me. Everyone was so excited to be doing this. Everyone was so happy that Star Wars was back and we were all working on this incredible movie together. Yeah. And when I walked onto the set on that first day, I could not believe it because we watch the films, we all watch the films, people that love them, and we imagine being inside them. We imagine being inside those worlds. And we've spent maybe years thinking about being inside that world and what that might be like and playing with our imagination about the possibilities of that. And then as a person, as an actor, or just as a person, when that becomes a reality and you are on some of the biggest sets you've ever experienced.
Practical sets, too.
And you are inside the world. It is the most euphorically mind-blowing moment.
I'm a big nerd about filmmaking. I get so geeked out that I get tears in my eyes. I call them nerd tears. And I watch Game of Thrones religiously, so I'm wondering if Captain Phasma and your character from Game of Thrones could meet, what would they speak about? What do you think they would talk about? I know it would never happen, but what would they talk about? I
think that if those two were to meet, nothing in the world could stop them.
Ooh. Someone get George R.R. Martin on the phone.
Shall we?
I'm a big fan of filmmaking. I get so geeked out that I get nerd tears. And seeing you fly that
How are nerd tears different from regular tears?
Because they're happy tears. Like I just get tears.
Have like little Rubik's Cubes in them? Or?
Yeah, the little TIE fighters.
Little X-Wings that come down.
I want to ask you, when you're flying the X-Wing on set, how does that look? Are you in a gimbal? What does it look like?
Yeah, unfortunately it didn't actually fly,
right,
which was annoying. But it was on a gimbal. So they had a life-size one that fires up, like the cockpit opens up when I got close to it, and I would jump up into it, thing would shut, the lights would all come on, the engines would fire up, BB-8 would be behind it, just rolling its head. That was crazy. And then they put me on a gimbal, there's the cockpit, up on some platforms. And I remember that, which was really cool and unexpected, shot it outside because of in the sun, because of the natural light. It just looks real. It looks like you're up there with it. So yeah, and it would turn and move at incredibly steep angles, where I very nearly barfed a few times, just because it was moving so much. And I had the helmet, and it was hot and sweaty.
I told you I love Ex Machina.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everyone brings up the dance scene too, but it is an absolute classic dance scene. I'm wondering if some hypothetical way Poe had a dance scene in this movie, what song would it be to, and how would he dance to it?
Well, it would be mostly in the glutes. I think that he would feel it because it's a little tight. So there would just be little hip movements in here. What song would it be? Gosh, I was listening to music. I was listening to stuff. What was I listening to?
Were you really?
Yeah. I always try to find some music that kind of helps me.
What'd you listen to
get
for
into the
this?
tone. Shoot, what was it? TV on the radio is always part of it somehow, you know. So I always find some TV on the radio song that goes in there. But I don't know. I don't know what he would listen to. He's a pretty cool dude.
The original trilogy is such a masterpiece. You know, New Hope, Jedi, obviously Empire Strikes Back. I want to ask you, if Poe could be dropped into one famous scene in the trilogy, where would he have the most fun interacting if we could see him in that original trilogy?
I think it could be popped in. I mean, for me, it'd be fun. It'd be fun to see him. It'd be fun to see him in the Forest of Endor on one of the speeder things, you know?
Yes.
That would be very cool, you know, to see him just going, yeah.
Let's get that done.
Yeah, going through the forest there.
All right, so I'm a big nerd about filmmaking. I love performance capture. I'm a big Andy Serkis fan. Can you talk about just kind of what you looked like on set? I saw the Comic-Con footage of the dots, but how were you always moving around? Were you on a stage? Where were you when you did your scenes?
No, I was part of principal photography, so I was a part of the main shooting, which was really, really an awesome experience, and one that I know not many motion capture characters get to be a part of.
Right.
And then it was followed up by a lot of green screen and stuff. But I actually walked on those sets, and I was geeking out, much like I imagined you'd be geeking out
Yeah.
if you were in that position. Yeah.
What did you look like as you were on set? I saw the dots in your face, but were you in a full...
I was in a full suit all the way to my feet. I mean, I was wearing special sneakers, and I had dots all over my body on my suit, and then dots put on top of my suit. And they tried to explain it to me. I chose to let it go and do my job.
Did they give you previs of what you looked like? Like, I know sometimes the technology is so updated now that you can actually stand there on set with the dots and look at a camera and see what you look like.
Yeah, yeah. I had a bit of that. Yeah,
Oh
I
my
did.
gosh.
Yeah.
The last time I spoke to you was 12 Years a Slave, which was an absolute masterpiece performance. And I know with this type of film, you're in the performance capture, is there any difference in approaching a character in performance capture versus being on camera? Is there any difference whatsoever?
You know, when I spoke to Andy about this, and his advice to me was to go about creating Maz as I would any other character, which was a relief because I know how to do the work of an actor, you know? And so that was very helpful. And then it's about adjusting to the technicalities and not allowing them to curtail your performance, because it's very easy for all that to burden you. So it's a constant reminder that will take care of itself if you just give the performance you want to give, and work on it. And then, you know, with CGI, it's a longer process, of course, because there's way more hands involved. But other than that, I'm happy to say that it was a great acting challenge.
And I have to ask you this because since you did mention that you were on the sets walking with the actors, and you don't have to give anything away specifically about scenes, but JJ was telling me that the lightsabers were actually on set. Like, they were actually holding these lightsabers and they were lit up. Did you see these things? Like, what do they look like? They sound like they were awesome.
Wow, you really love Star Wars.
Yeah, I do.
You
This
really
is a big
do.
deal for me to be here.
Yes, there were lightsabers,
That's cool.
and yes, I saw them.